AFL is back with more footy coverage than ever before. On Thursday, it's the Footy Show. Then kick off the weekend on Friday with Friday Night Football and Before the Bounce, followed by Slightly Closer to the Bounce, just prior to the bounce, during the bounce and post-bounce review. Saturday is Game Day with our expert panel covering all the angles on Three-Quarter Time Live and Boundary Umpire Wrap-Up. Then on Sunday, we take a look back on all the football panel shows of the past 2 days on Talking Panels. Monday, we do the exact same thing, only wearing different suits. And then on Big Tuesday, we go around the grounds on empty stadiums. Footy's back for 2010. Even if you wanted to, you still couldn't miss it.
Welcome to Hungry Beast. Coming up tonight, which city is the drug capital of Australia? Find out when we reveal the results of our survey on illegal drug use.
In total, about 6.9 million Australian adults have taken illegal drugs. That's a lot of people willing to break the law.
Victoria Dynamite takes on the true villains of our time, vague weather forecasters.
This woman would have us believe it's mostly fine. Here's a tip, it's not.
And Daniel Keogh looks into the science of lying.
So just how bad is my lying? Well, I decided to audit myself to find out.
Speaking of which, time now to delve deep into the world of political spin doctors.
Are you the new guy?
Yeah.
Oh, great. You're going to love this. Welcome to the Spin Lab. Here is where we test every bit of spin before it hits the electorate.
I thought this place didn't exist.
It doesn't.
There's a lot of people down here.
Are we well staffed? Yes, we are. You know something? That's the rhetorical department. They haven't slept in 3 weeks. Oh, and this is Steve.
Sorry.
He's in charge of apologising.
Sorry. That's fine. Sorry. What's this?
This is Gough Whitlam. We thaw him out every 4 years just before an election, but until then, snap frozen. And around the corner is our T-shirt department. How's it going there, Jenny?
We're down to 2. Optimistic aspirational specificity, or KEV-N10.
Keep trying. This is the fair dinkum fire. It turns verbose language into everyday speak. Proportionally even-handed distribution of condiments.
Fair shake of the sauce pot.
Handy. Yeah, not as handy as this. A pen that can only write the word mate. Wow. Here is our Twitter team. Over here is our website team.
What's Garrett Watch?
It's for internal use only. You didn't see that. Oh, shit. Rudd's on Good News Week. I almost forgot. Can we bring it up on 2, please? Comedy writer standing by.
Standing by. Earpiece.
Check.
Mike.
Check. Oh, damn, it's gone off script. Shit. Patch me in. Good, Kevin. Good. Just smile and nod. That's it, mate.
I love your country, PM.
The Canadians made another joke. So you're going to take a look at his visa?
We're going to check his visa later.
Good. Well done, everyone. Well, I think you like working here.
Stuff said this week. We should not be too scandalised if some bishops knew about it but kept it secret. Aid to the Pope, Cardinal Jose Saraiva Martins, on the Vatican's ever-widening sexual abuse cover-up. Guardian.co.uk, 27th March 2010.
The greenies can eat their cold tofu burgers by organic beeswax candlelight, while I eat a huge steak with every single light on our property lit up like Guy Fawkes Day. Hee hee, smiley face. John Hudson Taylor writing on the wall of the Facebook group Human Achievement Hour, set up in opposition to last week's Earth Hour initiative. Facebook, 25th of March, 2010.
I have all I want. Russian mathematician Grigory Perelman, who lives in a modest apartment with his mother, explaining his decision to reject a $1 million prize for solving the Poincare conjecture, a theory that has taken a century to solve. dailymail.co.uk, 23rd of March, 2010.
Bookshops today, more than ever before, are groaning under the weight of autobiographies. This shelf alone covers current Australian cricketers. I mean, Do we really need to know the Ben Hilfenhaus story? Then there's the hardship category, personal tales of inspiration. But for every dreams from my father, there's another 500 Mr. T's, the man with the goal, which someone else probably wrote for him. And even if they do write them themselves, you simply can't trust a life story written by the person it's about.
Everyone in the party loved me. They thought I'd make the best Liberal leader ever.
When Abraham Lincoln was asked to write his autobiography, he submitted less than 600 words, surely. If the man who ended slavery in the US needs only 600 words...
then the rest of you posters can fuck off.
What a wordsmith. And ever since The Diary of Anne Frank became such a bestseller, every teenage girl thinks her tortured musings are worth publishing, even Miley Cyrus.
Pink isn't a colour, it's an attitude.
Poor Miley, so tragic. Autobiographies, they're a little bit bullshit.
Drug use is a major social and criminal issue in Australia. Our governments spend $4.7 billion a year policing illegal drugs and recently launched another multi-million-dollar ad campaign to convince the public not to take them. Does anybody listen? Hungry Beast commissioned a nationwide survey by McNair Ingenuity Research to find out. So, it turns out of those surveyed, 42% of Aussies 18 and over have taken illegal drugs. If you exclude the over 55s, that figure jumps to more than half. Country people are more likely to have tried them than city dwellers. More men have dabbled than women. Brisbane is the drug capital of Australia. And Queensland, the state with the highest proportion of people who've taken drugs. Just over half, in fact. How recently? Well, more than 1 in 10 Australians said they've used drugs in the past year, most commonly marijuana. The survey identified a generation gap. People aged 18 to 39 are 10 times more likely to have taken drugs in the last 12 months than people aged 55 or over. We also asked why people take drugs. Respondents could choose more than one option from a list of 23 potential reasons. The top 3 were to see what it was like, to have fun, or my friends were using it so I thought I'd try it. Only 3% of people said they were addicted. To look at that the other way, 97% of users believe they're not addicts. In total, about 6.9 million Australian adults have taken illegal drugs. That's a lot of people willing to break the law. That's a figure that raises questions about the effectiveness of the war on drugs. For decades, we've adopted a zero-tolerance approach to drug use, with calls for decriminalisation seen as coming from the fringe. But increasingly, decriminalisation is seen as a more effective approach by some countries and people involved in law enforcement around the world.
My name's John McGeary. I was a policeman for 30 years. Also have a graduate diploma in substance abuse studies, and my job is now primarily linking people in with treatment for drug and alcohol addiction. Bear in mind, I'm probably about 3 places to the right of Attila the Hun. Yeah, sort of strong conservative values, but over a period of time of working in the sector, realising that this war on drugs we're having is not working.
John McGeary is a member of an international organisation called LEAP. That stands for Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. LEAP has more than 15,000 members worldwide, including former and current cops, lawyers, judges and prison workers. The organisation lobbies governments to rethink drug policy.
All we're doing is filling the prisons up with people who are committing crimes to support their drug habits. We've done nothing to reduce drugs.
Former Seattle Police Chief Norm Stamper, another 30-year cop, says decriminalising drugs, even legalising them, is no longer just an idea put forward by addicts and political fringe groups.
Much of the agitation for reform is coming not from drug users, but from people who care about the health and safety of our communities, who care about the civil liberties of free people in your country and in mine, and who care really about keeping drugs out of the hands of our kids. And these are not advocates for drug use at all.
LEAP argues that we have to accept the approach we have is not working.
It might sound like I'm promoting illicit drugs. I hate them with a passion. I hate what they do to people.
I totally get it, why a single mom, for example, might be scared to death of any talk of legalization when she's got a 13 or a 14-year-old who she suspects might be experimenting with drugs. But of course, what needs to be told to people like that, who are very responsible parents, is your kids already have great access to illicit drugs.
Those who want to end the war on drugs say that beyond the human cost, there's also an enormous financial burden.
In my country, It has cost us $1 trillion since 1971, when Richard Nixon proclaimed drugs public enemy #1. $1 trillion. Every year we spend another $69 or $70 billion prosecuting that war. And what do we have to show for it? Drugs are more readily available at lower prices and higher levels of potency than since Richard Nixon declared war on them.
The money being spent on fighting drugs could be spent on other things which are more beneficial to the public, spent on welfare, spent on education.
LEAP sees no divide between licit and illicit drugs.
1 in 2 people who smoke tobacco will probably die from it. Alcohol is related to more deaths and domestic violence than cannabis, yet it is legal. We seem to think, oh, it's all right to go out and wipe yourself out on the weekend on alcohol, but Jesus, if you use drugs, if you use heroin or use amphetamines, it's terrible.
Both men agree there is public misunderstanding of who a drug user is to overcome.
There's a stereotype of the junkie, the heroin addict who's lying face down in a urine-filled alley. But there are a whole lot of professional people and blue-collar people and young people and old people and men and women of all colors use drugs. But their lives are not being adversely affected by that. Please don't hear this as promotion or advocacy. It's just simply a reflection of fact.
Debate about the war on drugs is moving beyond localised prohibition. Many people now argue that Western countries are unethical global citizens, that our hardline anti-drug policies lead to the destruction of entire countries in South and Central America.
An inevitable product of prohibition is violence. And it is heartbreaking to read, to hear personal first-hand accounts of the violence on the Mexican border of the United States. The drug cartels are now engaged in a level and a form of violence that is unprecedented.
The only way you can eliminate that illicit drug market that pushes the dealers, the people who are making a lot of money out of people's misery, is to actually legalise it and control it. That's my belief.
A number of countries have already taken steps towards decriminalising the personal use of drugs. Portugal did it back in 2001 and is now seen as a drug policy guinea pig for the rest of the world. A recent report on the 9-year experiment concluded, by virtually every metric, the Portuguese decriminalisation framework has been a resounding success. We spoke with João Goulão, the president of Portugal's Institute of Drugs and Drug Addiction.
Some people thought that Portugal would become a paradise of drug addicts. We would have an increase in drug tourism. People would come from all over the world to use drugs in Portugal. In fact, nothing of that happened. We had very good responses with several indicators, like the numbers about AIDS and hepatitis, less experimentation among youngsters. The experimentation of all kinds of illicit drugs has dropped from 2001 to 2007, and the impact on Portuguese society, on families' life, on individuals' life has fallen since then, since the decriminalization happened.
Goulão says treating drug use as a health issue rather than a criminal issue was key to developing effective policy.
It allowed us to develop the responses more clearly, more openly. In terms of prevention, now we can talk openly with everybody, with the young people in schools, and explain it. It's not a taboo.
Goulão emphasises that drugs are still prohibited under the Portuguese model. If you're caught with more than a 10-day supply, it's considered trafficking and you can face jail. If it's less, you face rehabilitation, a fine or community service.
What I would like to stress is I believe that decriminalization by itself, without working in the fields of treatment, prevention, harm reduction and so on, would not lead us to anywhere.
Any change to our drug laws would require public support. So what does Australia think about current policy? According to the Hungry Beast McNair Ingenuity Survey, only 17% of us believe that government policies dealing with illegal drug use are effective. And half the population reckon police resources should be applied to more serious crimes than pursuing people for using small amounts of illegal drugs. When it comes to decriminalisation, it all depends on the drug in question. 52% of us are in favour of decriminalising marijuana, but support for extending that to other drugs is much lower. Why? Well, perhaps one of the reasons can be seen in another of the survey's findings. 62% of us think other people would use drugs more often if they were decriminalised, but only 3% say they personally would. We define the people who can't be trusted with drugs as everyone but ourselves. Of course, there are plenty of people who don't think decriminalising drugs is a good idea. We'll be hosting a live discussion about drug policy on our website after the show, featuring Major Brian Waters, ex-chair of the Australian National Council on Drugs and a strong opponent of decriminalisation. John McGeary from LEAP, who you just saw in our story, will also be joining us. But for now, back to the survey results. 42% of Australian adults, that's nearly 7 million people, claim to have used illegal drugs. It may be criminal, but it's also very common. In fact, for some people, drugs are ordinary consumer products, something to buy for the weekend. So why not subject them to the same scrutiny as other purchases? Now, we're not advocating drug taking, but for those of you who do use drugs, if you've never considered the ethics of it all, here's some food for thought.
What would happen if you took 4 high-profile recreational drugs and asked questions like, what's the environmental impact? How are workers who grow and supply it treated? And where does the money end up? Let's find out. First, marijuana, Australia's favourite illegal drug. One ethical plus, if you choose it, you're supporting local industry. The bulk is grown locally, which keeps the carbon miles low. That said, since the business is unregulated, cannabis farmers can use cheap, dangerous chemicals off limits to regular farmers. The majority of Australian pot is hydroponic, grown indoors. That means less damage to bushland but more greenhouse gas emissions thanks to round-the-clock sun lamps. And where does your money go? Weed has a hefty profit margin, selling for 1,400% more than it costs to produce, which attracts organised crime financed by you with every gram you buy. That said, weed isn't being produced in sweatshops or destroying the Amazon. So next to a lot of common big brand products, cannabis holds its own ethically. Now to ecstasy. The little pills are mostly made in first world countries, then shipped here, so ecstasy production doesn't exploit third world labour. Transporting it does rack up carbon miles though. The other environmental concern is one of its key ingredients, saffron oil from the sassafras tree. According to Flora and Fauna International, huge areas of Cambodian rainforest have been cleared for sassafras growing, and the oil production process poisons the country's waterways, killing wildlife. Our third drug, heroin, comes from Southeast Asia and the Golden Triangle, where forests are also being cleared, this time to plant poppies. In northern Thailand, up to 6 million hectares of trees have been cut down in the past 20 years. If you're genuinely green, heroin isn't for you. But unlike many drugs, heroin arguably has some surprising ethical positives. Burma is where most Asian heroin comes from. Rebels farm it there to support their fight for independence against the Burmese junta. You might also help lift peasants out of poverty. A gram of heroin retails for about $300 here. Opium farmers receive $3.15 of that. Not much, but around 10 times more than they'd make from any other crop. So in the end, heroin could almost be fair trade certified. But let's not forget, most of the money still ends up with organised crime here. Very few Australians do smack though. About 10 times as many use cocaine. Here's an uncomfortable truth. For every gram you buy, 43 square feet of Colombian rainforest is destroyed. So it's no use riding your bike to work if you're going to rack up lines on the weekend. Cocaine farmers are usually forced into the business by rebel groups or corrupt government forces. Working conditions are risky at best. Cocaine money contributes to the destabilisation of most of Central America. More than 4.6 million people have been driven from their homes by the drug war in Colombia since 1985. And since 2006, 17,000 people have been killed in the Mexican drug wars. More than 2,000 have been murdered this year alone, and it's only March. Every drug you buy affects someone else. According to our survey, only 48% of Australian users consider the impact of their purchases on the people who grow, produce, and supply drugs. For the rest of you, something to think about. Powder on your nostril, blood on your hands.
Food portions in paintings of the Last Supper have grown larger in line with the supersizing of meals. In 52 depictions of the scene painted over the past millennium, researchers found the spread put before Jesus and his disciples grew by up to 2/3. The International Journal of Obesity. The Indian military plans to turn the world's hottest chili, the so-called ghost chili, into a weapon to fight terrorism. The chili is 200 times hotter than Tabasco sauce and is said to be able to stop a charging elephant in its tracks. Guardian.co.uk. And new details have emerged about how an Al-Qaeda double agent executed one of the deadliest attacks in the CIA's history. The CIA believed the source would infiltrate Al-Qaeda's leadership. Instead, he blew himself up, killing 7 CIA agents last December. The gathering was meant to end with a birthday cake prepared by the CIA in his honour. Associated Press.
All of us lie from time to time, some of us more convincingly than others. Daniel Keogh investigates the science of lying and puts his own fibbing skills to the test.
Hi, I'm Daniel, and I'm a dishonest creep. For example, this one time in Year 6, I hired the school bully Julio to steal my friend James Gummer's magic cards for me. James, I'm really sorry, mate. When the teacher asked if I knew anything about the theft, I lied. But I felt so guilty that I confessed the whole thing to the school priest. Everybody lies. Twice a day on average. At least that's what researchers at the University of Virginia have found. In fact, there's been a heap of research into the science of lying. Number 1, we lie to strangers. A lot. Most of us will say 3 things that aren't entirely accurate in the first 10 minutes of meeting someone. 2, men and women lie as often as each other, but in different ways. Men lie to make themselves look better, while women lie to make others feel better. 3, us humans are crap at detecting lies. Another study showed that FBI officers, police detectives, and psychologists are only correct at spotting a lie 47% of the time. That's worse than just tossing a coin. So just how bad is my lying? Well, I decided to audit myself to find out. For 2 weeks, I recorded every single lie I told, whether it was lying to the boss at work, or to friends on email, or just to randoms in the street. I would hop online and record it all onto Twitter. And this is what I found. Over 14 days, I lied 55 times. That's an average of 4 a day. Which is a bit of a kick in the dick for me, really. Most of my lies were about how awesome I am. They were lies about me being smarter, more worldly, and totally not being a loner. To be fair, some of my lies were actually protecting other people from my real opinions. Don't ask me what I think about your idea, because I'm probably just going to lie to you. Think of these as the polite lies. Without them, life would be so brutally honest that you wouldn't even want to get out of bed. Recording my lies, even for 2 weeks, it made me stop and think, wait, what I'm about to say is bullcrap. Do I really need to lie right now? Sure, publishing it online means that no one will ever trust me again, but overall it's been a strangely cleansing experience. However, there's one more thing I need to do to redeem myself. Forgive me, Father. I lied to a workmate about going to the doctors. I lied about going to the gym. I lied to this charity girl.
You can see all of Daniel's lies at twitter.com/IJustLied and keep your eye on that account because over the next 7 days, Daniel will be cataloguing all of his untruths. So if you bump into him in the street, just be careful what you ask.
He says it's partly cloudy. She says mainly sunny. And this woman would have us believe it's mostly fine. Here's a tip, it's not. For too long, weather reporters have been getting away with vague forecasts. But now one group is kicking up a storm. They call themselves the People for Advancement of Specified and Deadly Accurate Forecasting, or PADAFSTAF for short.
Here at PADAFSTAF, we believe that fence-sitting terms like mainly, mostly, possibly are not good enough.
Jenny Warden is much prettier than I'd imagined from our brief phone conversation.
In what other line of work is such vagueness acceptable? Open heart surgeons can't be mostly accurate. Weather presenters need to be made accountable.
Especially when innocent lives are at risk. This grieving mother, whose name from memory is either Diane or Kelly, has felt firsthand the pain and suffering which came as a direct result of an ambiguous weather report.
Well, she was really badly injured when she was...
Stop. Can you not say injured? I would really like it if she died.
Oh.
Just say she died.
My daughter, she died when she was crossing the road.
Wait a second. Is that her?
Yes.
Yeah, right. Can we just frame her out? That'd be good.
My daughter, she died when she was crossing the road.
If only the weatherman had been more specific, Kelly or Diane's daughter could still be alive today. While shonky guesstimators will continue to plague primetime with their squiggly lines, the forecast remains bleak for this grieving single mother.
Some people say you can't predict the weather, but you can predict a hell of a good time at Rocket World. You'll meet stacks of interesting people and laugh. Rocket World, hang high and go hard. Woo!
£425,000 sterling. The estimated return a British arrival would have made on a £200,000 investment in Australian property if they'd bought here just 4 years ago. $3 million. The amount a conservation group needs to raise within 3 weeks to save the iconic Hollywood sign from being razed to build luxury houses. $3,170 million. The value of all baggage lost by airlines worldwide last year.
That's another Hungry Beast done and dusted. But as usual, there are new stories on the website every day, including stuff you made.
Along with the Beast File, which this week looks at the history of the medical use of MDMA, also known as ecstasy.
Last week, we asked for videos about superheroes the world needs now. You can check them out on the website. This week, we want videos for or against the decriminalisation of drugs. Remember, you don't need a fancy video camera. Your phone or a webcam are just fine. Make them original and then post them on the site.
Don't forget, there's a live forum on decriminalisation of illegal drugs happening right now at abc.net.au/hungrybeast, unless you live in WA, Queensland or the Northern Territory, in which case it's over.
Bow.
But you can still read what people had to say.
We'll see you there. Good night.
Coming up next week on Hungry Beast. The backlash continues as furious protesters vent their anger over the axing of the bill.
They were really fired up a few minutes ago. Poor dears.
And we find out what impact the axings had on the ABC.
Obviously, we are all devastated at the ending of the bill, but it's a chance to move forward. And we're really excited to announce today that we'll be replacing it with repeats of the bill.
And the Pope categorically denies any knowledge or cover-up of the Vatican's hit 80s sitcom, Hey Father. That's next week on Hungry Beast.